Hello and welcome to the Peak Executive Podcast. My name is Tim Blinkhorn, and over here is my business partner, Evan Keller.
How are you doing, Tim?
Good. About yourself today?
Great.
Wonderful. In speaking about the Peak Way, we've talked a little bit in the past about there's 5 pillars that we really help clients through: talent and culture, growth, execution, strategy, and profitability. And today, what I want to kick off and have a discussion with you, Evan, is about strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about in an earlier segment culture and talent really being the backbone and heartbeat of the organization. I think strategy is all about setting the direction so that things like execution can drive growth and strong profitability. But you got to have a strategy. You got to be able to articulate where you're going and make sure that the whole organization understands that and has the tools in place to sense if you're making the right progress towards those plans. Oftentimes, strategy is not about what we're doing today and tomorrow, but where we're getting 3 and 5 years from now. You have to make daily progress towards those goals and have the measures in place to know that it's happening.
Yeah, this is a different skill set for guys like you and I, where we're actually all about getting stuff done.
Right? That's right.
Because this is take a breath, think deeply about what your details of the business are, and kind of try and figure out where you're going to go. And for me personally, the development of strategy and now working with clients it's not an easy thing because everybody's just getting stuff done throughout the day. They don't schedule any time. What did you find when you were thinking about strategy, and how did you change your skill set to get after it?
Yeah, I think, like you say, it has to be an intentional effort. It's easy to get sucked into day-to-day activities at any level of the organization, chasing today's problems and trying to prevent tomorrow's issues. But as you say, taking some time to set aside to really think about where are we, how are we performing, how are we competing against others in the marketplace, and then deciding where do we want to go and how do we plan to get there and what do the results look like when we do. It's something that needs to be intentional, and that's typically why I think you see these sort of strategy offsites, summits, whatever, where people try to get away a little bit. Doesn't mean you have to leave the facility, but set some intentional time aside to do that work.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part, right? It's being aware enough to say, I got to think differently. I got to set some time aside and go after it. So let's get into the sort of how we help our clients. When we're working with clients, the kind of things that I start to think about and we go through with them. One is, to me, it's about what are you trying to accomplish? Like, why does the organization exist, right? And so that's one question that we would ask in the beginning. Who are we doing this for? Are we doing this for customer, shareholder, our employees? What are we doing, and who do we do it for? The third thing I think about is what industries do we play in? What markets are we serving? And sometimes some people really don't think deeply about that. And so what we see when we go into our clients is that there may be in adjacent markets, or there may be next to markets where they didn't really think that they were competing in that particular industry or that particular market. And so doing a strategy session helps them better define where they're going, who they're playing against. The next for me is really about competition. Like, who is your competition? Is it the one that's selling the most? Is it the one that has the most market share? Or is it something different? Is it something that you don't even know about yet? Is it coming after you? And the fifth thing I think about when we work with our clients is what are we known for? You think about our brand and our reputation. And so when we go through those things, I think you've talked about it in the past, where I don't think you can set a good strategy if you don't know the details intimately about your business.
I think that's a very fair statement, and one that we find often when we get called in to help businesses that may be in disarray. There was no lack of those strategy summits and dinners and offsites, but what was missing was the detail behind each of those sort of elements that you described. The detailed answers to the questions that you highlighted are important to ask. I think oftentimes it's fun to come up with the new strategy, the direction, but unless you've considered your customers, unless you've deeply analyzed your internal performance, your team's capabilities, the competition's ability and aspiration, and how they might come and threaten your current position. Unless you can, with detail, articulate all those things, you're likely to get surprised, and you likely don't have the best strategy that you can put forth. So understanding your business deeply is important. And I think that's why we've been able to succeed both in the businesses we've run, but also with the clients we help, because we really are interested in that hands-on, get involved in the business, understand it deeply, and then go answer those questions that you highlighted.
And I think that's where we have the most fun.
Absolutely.
Like when we're really understanding the details of somebody's business. But let's talk about our experience. Most of what we've done in the training that we've had and the clients that we work with is really around 1 year, 3 year, 5 year strategies. What's your thoughts on someone who's just trying to get started with, I've never put together a strategy, or we want to change our strategy? What is your thoughts on how we can get started with some clients?
Yeah, I think you go back to once you understand the detail and you can start to articulate the answers to those questions that you highlighted at the top, then you have to start envisioning what does that look like, because ultimately we've got to document it, we've got to put it in a way that the organization can understand it, and we need to place some measurements against it. So perhaps 4 years from now you intend to be number one in market share. That's great. You need to have that plan, but then there's going to be a whole bunch of sub plans that have to come together to each and every different function and leader is going to have to go activate against their organization to make that happen. And so I think if you can set the vision down on paper and then put a measure behind it of what that looks like and a rough estimation of timing, now you can actually start moving towards that, so long as you communicate it clearly to the organization.
Yeah, and I think a great example of this is when I spent some time in England running a subsidiary. I had direction from our company as to what our strategy might be, but I had no information and details about what was going on in country, in England, right? So when I went over there, the strategy set forth was really about, we want to be number one or number two share in every place that we do business. And we happened to be number 5 when we were in England. And we really were in different markets. We were in a lot of work markets, ag and farm. And so I had to understand all of the details of what that business was locally before I could figure out how we actually execute and actually go after aligning to that strategy. And that's a good point about back to what we talked about, where you really got to understand the details before. You can't just go in there and say we want to be number 1 or number 2, because people look at me and go, okay, so what should we do?
Yeah, we've wanted to be number 1 or number 2 for a while, right? So what are the plans that would have to ladder up to make that happen?
Yeah, and then the second thing I think about is, I was always in my career was always about just quickly we can get stuff done, just as quick as possible, execute, move on, right, and get after measurement and results. And really, if you think about strategy, what we defined earlier, it's all about patience and listening. And so part of my development was spending a lot of time in China when we were trying to find a manufacturing partner. And it was really an interesting concept. And 1, you learn patience, and 2, you learn how to listen. There's just a lot better information when you can spend time thinking about, okay, I'm here to understand strategy and develop a skill for it, and I'm willing to put the time and effort into it. And if you don't do it that way, then you just keep running through the daily details.
Absolutely, and then things are constantly happening to you in your organization, and you don't have a clear roadmap of where you want to go and how you get there. And certainly as things change, maybe a new competitor shows up, some sort of market dynamic changes, you can always evolve that and should always be evolving it. But if you're changing 5-year strategies every year, you're probably not getting it right or not spending the right amount of time initially.
Yeah, and that could be don't know the details.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do you tell our clients, or what have you seen from our clients that don't have a strategy? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think there are many businesses that have simply endured because they have a strong brand or they have a good product, but something is starting to shift in the environment, and their lack of direction may be the thing that's really starting to cause them to lose market share or lose profitability. And I would encourage anybody, whether it's someone that works with us or otherwise, just sit down, think about where you are, how you play in the marketplace, where you want to go. I think those are some pretty easy and initial questions you can ask of yourself, and then work with your team to answer those. That shouldn't be just one person's answer. That should be a collection of insights, not just across people, but through the voice of customer data that you collect in whatever form that might be. Start to really articulate where are we, where do we want to go, and then place some measures behind it so that you know where you expect to be in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a 5-year plan. so that when you sit down at the end of the first year, you understand, did we make any progress towards that ultimate goal?
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the businesses that you jumped in and helped grow businesses and run businesses, and specifically talk a little bit about your thoughts on strategy of the month.
Yeah, I think we see that a lot, particularly in companies that are either in chaos or have a sort of a mandate to be reporting quarterly or changing, hoping to change results very quickly. Obviously, that's very important, and it's where we've lived a lot of our lives, making sure that every day, every month, every quarter succeeds. But that's not having a strategy, right? That's just simply reacting to the market. You have to set a series of pillars and a course so that when those things are happening to you, market dynamics, macroeconomic changes, whatever it may be, that's not when you change your strategy. Your strategy stays relatively static. How you engage with the issue of the day may change, but if it's constantly a shifting strategy, you don't have the ability to lead the team because you don't have a North Star, if you will.
Yeah. So the planning tactics can change, but the strategy, I like the way you put it. The strategy, if that's changing all the time, then you didn't get it right. Either you don't know enough about the details, or you're confusing planning and tactics with strategy.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, kind of recap and the questions that we ask. When we come into clients that are looking to really understand better their strategy, the way that we can help them is just starting to go through, what are you trying to accomplish? Who are you doing this for? What markets are you playing in? Who's your competitor? And what are you known for? Do you want to wrap us up and talk a little bit about what next steps might look like?
Yeah, so if those are questions that you struggle to answer for yourself, or more importantly, if the detail that underpins those questions is absent in your organization, or you need help figuring that out, certainly we'd be happy to help. You can reach out to us, peakexecutivepartners.com. Would be love to learn more about your business, love to talk about those elements and questions of strategy, and then work through the details of building one that can endure a variety of different market dynamics, competition, etc.
Wonderful. Thank you.